Happy New
Oh,
Year, everybody.
yeah. Wow. So Tammy, what we're here today to get people rocking their database for 2024, huh?
That's right. That's right. There is no
Mhm.
better way to rock it out and uncover transactions and help more people.
Yeah. Well, let's as we get started today, again, the topic $50 for every $1 uh invested in lead generation. Today we're talking about specifically about your connected contacts, your Met database. And I want to give credit to this for David Huffaker. David Huffaker, Middle Tennessee. Tammy, he's taken never ending referrals, what, how many times? Three?
Five.
Five.
Yes.
Five times. And of course, David's a brilliant mega agent, and he's plussed and plussed, this, but yet the foundation of everything he's done with the database side of his business has been founded in the principles of never-ending referrals. And you know what David's been able to accomplish with the database portion of his business. I know a year before last, I believe it was 300 million, about 43%. 44% from the database. And what he's done over the last 4 years, he's averaged well over $50 for every dollar he invested in the database. In fact, he had 1 year where he got a $72 return for every dollar spent on the database. And so, Tammy, I don't know, that seems like dollars well spent, if you ask me.
It does. It does.
Mhm. Yeah. So that being said, let's get into our journey today, and we're going to take you through what are some of those foundational principles. We're going to get into some specific strategies. We're going to give you a conversation or two. Actually, at the end, I got a free gift for you that you can cash in today and take your learning a little bit deeper. And obviously, we'll tell you about how we work with agents to become that trusted advisor that is so important for us to be today. But let me pull up the slide deck here, Tammy, and we'll get started.
All right. Let's do it. So glad to see everybody back at work.
Yeah, I tell you. Here we go. Let's pull this up and we'll go full screen on it so we can come on. And so today we're going to dive into your hyperlocal 52 touch. Now, we know that millionaire real estate agent talks about 36 touch, and yet 52 touch. Tammy, what's going to happen if I touch people? Well, that's one time a week. What happens?
That's right. Well, first of all, you capture mind share, and that's what everything that we do is all around. How do you capture mind share so that when someone thinks about anything real estate, they think about us?
Mhm. And then we're going to get into the ultimate conversation tool, because one of the battles, Tammy, that I know that there's many people on this webinar today that as the year kicks off, and one of the most important things I can do is have conversations with the people in my database, and yet I know many agents. I'm sure many of you would admit that you'd rather call an expired or for sale by owner or have a hangnail or something than call the people in your database or your past client. And a lot of that is just because we don't have a model for how to do that well and have it be something that is of contribution and of giving versus, well, maybe we feel like we're taking. And then we're going to talk about what an actual smart conversation looks like today. So Tammy, let's go here first. And, the ultimate goal that as we see it through our eyes as coaches and agents is this opportunity to succeed in a relationship-based business. Everything we really need to know about on a macro level about how to do that is right here in this little thing called the trust triangle. And of course, this came from the Harvard Business Review, and it was actually a study of how leaders develop trust with the people that they led. And when I heard Gary Keller and Jay Papasan talking about this, it came clear to me this is exactly how you and I build trust with the people in our database so that we become that trusted advisor. So, Tammy, as we jump into this, I want to just comment for a second, and that is the goal is not putting a bunch of people into a CRM and marketing to them so that you become known as Steve the Realtor, right? The goal is to build a trust relationship and become the trusted advisor and become known as who?
Steve, my realtor. When they take ownership of you, it's a completely different level
Mhm.
than describing you as the realtor. And that's the goal.
Yeah. I mean, if you're worried about the whole commission lawsuits and all the other things, when you're somebody's realtor and they trust you, this is getting to what Gary talks about in the MREA, the fiduciary versus functionary. You can choose to be a functionary and you'll be probably paid less. If you choose to be a fiduciary and you've got that trust relationship, well, you're going to be highly paid and highly compensated. So let's go back to this and we go back to the trust triangle. And we're going to cover each of these 3 points today as we go through, since this is the macro, and we'll break it down and say, kind of, what does this look like as we go a little deeper. So, the logic side of this, and we're going to go through some logic examples. How do we build that position? The logic part says, I know you can do it. Your reasoning and judgment is sound. In other words, they are confident that you know what you're talking about. You know the market. You know the best moves for people to make. And so they listen to you. They trust you. They ask you questions. So, Tammy, what about empathy? What's the empathy piece of this?
Empathy, is them truly believing that you care about them and their goals and their success. And it really begins with asking questions about them, truly listening, asking follow-up questions, allowing your voice to show empathy when it's necessary, just truly feeling like somebody cares and you're not rushing to get to something else and glossing over what's important to them.
Yeah. And what is this whole thing, authenticity? What is that?
That's the icing on the cake. It's literally it's why the other two, logic and empathy, are at the bottom of the triangle. They're the foundation of it all. And yet the cherry on top is that they absolutely know that when they're experiencing the two on the bottom, that it's authentically you, that they're not experiencing this other version of you. All of us have been in situations where we know that the person we're speaking to isn't being genuine to themselves and it doesn't come across as authentic. And so
Mm,
authenticity is such a key piece because we want to be in relationship with people that we like, know, love, trust, and that authenticity piece is so key. And it really means, Steve, we have to do things with our database that, well, they feel genuine to us because then we're authentic when we're doing them. And that means that there's so many different ways to do this business, and you have to find the way to do this business that is genuine, authentic to you, so that you step into your true behavior and you're not doing something that doesn't feel right to you.
mm. That feels pretty significant right there,
Yeah.
because I mean, I think that's at the beginning of this when I said people would rather call an expired or for sale by owner. That's where a lot of that is because sometimes having that going out and taking that position with them and having these conversations where they feel cared about, maybe that doesn't feel genuinely us. And we have to find a way to do that. And that's, by the way, that's part of what we teach, right? That's part of this whole system of becoming a trusted advisor is, it's like when I learned this originally, my early mentor said, be friends with all your clients and you'll get a lot of referrals. Well, that was anxiety provoking for me. I couldn't be everybody's best friend because it wouldn't be authentic. And yet when I learned that I could be the trusted advisor, I said, I can be that. And this will help a lot of us is to make a pivot today and start to go building around that position and what does that look like. All right, well, let me go back to our slides, Tammy. So that's our framework for what we're covering today. It's this: how do we deliver on the logic point? How do we deliver on the empathy point? And how do we do it in a way that's just absolutely, genuinely authentic? They're experiencing the real us. Because Tammy, if the real us isn't coming to the table, we won't do the work long term.
Nope.
Um,
And they
it'll
won't hire us either.
Yeah, yeah, because they got that BS detector, right?
Yeah, the believability scale.
Right, and doesn't feel genuine, and it feels like we're salesy, and none of us want to feel salesy, and that's why so many times we've shied away from these conversations that we're going to talk about today. All right, so let me go back to the trust triangle, and let me flip on to the next slide, and this is all going to begin with it's going to start with us getting in flow or getting in a rhythm or connection with the people in our database. And we're going to cover just how to do that today. And you notice, of course, from the image, this is probably a strategy that's going to involve direct mail. And by the way, direct mail is not dead. There's a lot less noise out there in that space today. And with the right strategy, can be a great opportunity. It's about the conversations we have on the phone. It's about email and it's about text and messaging. So it's like taking a multi-prong approach, a multi-channel approach to creating connection or flow. And so, Tammy, to kind of highlight this,
Mm,
let's talk about Barbara.
yeah.
And I think that, let's talk about what connection and flow is, what it looks like to be in flow. And I'll start with a story where I get a phone call and I'm driving down the interstate, and on the dashboard of my truck, phone rings and it says Barbara DeLamo. And it's a 210 area code, which is San Antonio, where I live. And so I know it's somebody local to me, and yet I can't identify the name Barbara. Barbara, who's Barbara? And yet my first instinct is she's in my contacts. She's showing up on my display. I must know her. And so don't judge me. I did what maybe you would do. I hit the answer button and I said, "Hey, Barb, what's going on?" Not having a clue who Barbara is. And now I got to use Barbara's voice for effect. And she goes, "Well, hi, Steve." And I'm going, "Well, hey, Barbara, what can I do for you?" She goes, "Well, hey, I was just calling to wish you a happy birthday." And I'm going, "Well, thanks." And by the way, it's like July 9th, and my birthday's not till July 31st. By the way, write that down. I'd love to get a greeting from you, right? It's not till July 31st. And I say, "Well, Barbara, thanks. You're a little early." And she goes, "I know. I wanted to be the first one." She goes, "Am I the first one?" And I go, "Yeah, you are." And of course, I'm still going, who the heck is Barbara? Who's calling me to wish me happy birthday on my not birthday 3 weeks early? And have can't place her. And yet then Barbara, she goes, "Hey, Steve, are you still coaching Bold?" I said, "Yeah, Barbara, as a matter of fact, I am." And she goes, "I took the first Bold you ever did in San Antonio back in 2009. And, what's going on with Bold?" And she asked me about Bold. We had a very brief conversation around Bold. And at least now I've got context for who the heck is Barbara.
Right.
And and then she said, "Now, yeah, I know when in one of your Bold classes, there was a lady that came in and sponsored one of the sessions. You had a girlfriend that lived in San Antonio. What was her name?" I said, "Shelly." She goes, "Yeah, are you guys still together?" I said, "We are." And she goes, "In fact, I know that you're originally from the San Antonio area. You talked about maybe moving back here. Did you ever make the move back to San Antonio?" And I said, "Yeah, back actually been there 2.5 years." And she goes, "Man, I guess I was a little short on that one." And I said, "Of course, Barbara represented myself." And she got my address where we were living now. And then, so we had a brief conversation about Shelley and moving to San Antonio. And she asked me, "What were some of the great things you're loving about San Antonio?" And we had brief conversation there. And, she gave me a referral to a great brunch place that was awesome. And then she asked me a question. She said, "What kind of big plans, you and Shelly got coming up in the near future?" And we talked about a trip to Egypt. Um, the whole conversation, Tammy, 6 minutes, maybe seven. And in 6 or 7 minutes, we had this complete conversation. And I hung up feeling completely connected and completely in flow with Barbara. Now, here's the interesting thing, Tammy. It went from who the heck is Barbara to feeling completely connected with Barbara.
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Mhm.
And, if you'd called me a minute before, who should I send a great referral to in San Antonio? It wouldn't have been Barbara. She wasn't even on my radar. Now, there's one other thing, though, that happened in this call. As I went to hang up the phone, I noticed on the screen that it said maybe Barbara DeLamo. It didn't say Barbara DeLamo. Now, on an iPhone, that means you've got them in your correspondence. And so when I got home out of curiosity, I pulled up my email and I said, where have I been in conversation with Barbara? Where's that connection? Because I just, I don't recall it. I have no recollection of Barbara at all. And let me share with you what I found.
This is so crazy.
I had been getting an email from Barbara every 3 weeks or so for 7 years.
Whew.
What's that tell us, Tammy?
Us putting them on the campaigns and just sending the emails, we feel like we're staying in touch. And the truth of the matter is, we wake up and we swipe delete, swipe delete.
Mm,
And even seeing that for 7 years, you still couldn't place her.
yeah.
And I think it's indicative of sometimes we feel like we're over communicating, and it's a demonstration that we're not. And Steve, I bet if I were to guess that the next time you got an email from her, you opened it
I opened it, and opened the next one, and why did I open it?
because now you had a connection.
Now we're connection. Now we're in flow.
That's right.
And see, Barbara probably thought she was doing all the right things, having that campaign going. And at the end of the day, it wasn't being impactful or effective.
That's
And
right.
so, we go back until, we'll take a lesson, out of the playbook from the great author of Fierce Conversation, Susan Scott, who tells us, well, the conversation is the relationship. And what do we mean by that, Tammy?
You really don't have a relationship without a conversation. And the tough thing about our society right now is we communicate so heavily through text. And you can communicate via text, and you can start conversations via text. You can even stay in a relationship via text. However, you can't have a relationship only via text. I
Mhm.
promise you that if I were to reach out to Bruce, my husband, today and say, I'm done talking to you, we're just going to text. That's it. It's probably not going to last real long. Right.
Mhm.
And so the conversation truly is the relationship.
Yeah. And so we look at this, and there was another thing that happened in that call with Barbara. Tammy, what was the thing that really created that connection that Barbara did,
Yeah.
uh, that made that happen? What was it?
She was using really simple framework that many of you might be familiar with, and maybe you've never experimented with it. And it's called Ford, right? It's family, friends, occupation, recreation, dreams, and it's simply a conversation model that we use to ask about the things that matter most to the people that we're speaking with. If all of you look at the screen right now and you look at those things, those are all the things that matter most to you, and they matter most to the people that we're speaking with. In fact, when you're getting to know someone for the first time, those are the things that you ask questions about intuitively. And yet oftentimes, when we're in a position where we're feeling something is about business, or we're in a place where we're meeting somebody for the first time and maybe there's anxiety, we don't know what to say. And so it's simply having those go-to questions around each of these things to ask. Now, Steve, what's really interesting that Barbara did with you is she asked about every single one of those,
Mhm,
and you don't have to do that. You simply could ask a question about one, and then based on what they say, you go where the conversation goes,
mhm.
right? I mean, you ask follow-up questions, and you do those things, and yet it's such a simple model to follow. And right now, this time of year, what a great time of year, to reach out, and every one of you, start today and have those conversations with the people in your database, just wishing them a happy new year, and maybe asking a question about two of those things, maybe asking about the job. And Steve, my favorite question this time of year is, so what's one big goal you've got this year?
Mm,
Around anything.
yeah.
Because the likelihood is they might ask me what my one big goal is. And then guess what I get to say? Steve, my goal this year is to serve 50 families, 100 families, 500 families. I'm so glad you asked.
Yeah.
right? And then I get to share my goal and get really excited about that as well. So it's a perfect time of year to follow that.
And it's so funny you say this because, when I hung up the phone with Barbara, I felt extremely connected with her. And then I go, dang, I just got forwarded. I don't know that she intended to go through every piece of that. She went where the conversation went, and and obviously she had made some notes about me, or she had remembered some things, and the fact that she brought that forward is, remember that, when you finish your lead generation with your database, each week, each day, is make those little notes about what their answers were to that big plan or that goal, so you can go back to that as part of your opening when you connect again. In fact, we're going to model, when we go through a really powerful conversation here in just a bit, just how to use a forward in a framework that makes business conversations conversational, in a way that really positions us as that, with the empathy and the logic all at the same time. So let me go to our next point. So, Tammy, if the conversation is the relationship, that means we have to have a system to make sure we do what?
Have the conversation.
We got to have the conversations. And so when we think about the conversations, um, let's talk about a little thing called DTD2. If you've taken Bold, you've been introduced to this. DTD2 was developed by the Never Ending Referrals team here, and back in 2014. And it's this opportunity to have a schedule for life about who am I going to call, in my database this week. And it so happens the first week of the quarter, ups, is A&W week. So today, reaching out to your database, who's getting a call, Tammy?
Which week is it?
A&W.
Oh, it's A&W.
Yeah.
Okay. Anderson, Wilson.
Yeah. So all the A's, their last name begins with A or begins with W.
That's
Those are
right.
the folks that get a call. And Tammy, there's some folks that say, why don't I just load everybody in a dialer and power through them and get them all done as fast as I can, versus just following this 2 letters a week? Why would I just do this? It seems a little slow, actually, versus maybe just load everybody in a dialer.
If the conversation is the relationship, go back to what Steve just shared. He literally had a conversation around all four of those things in Ford in 6 minutes.
Mhm.
So when we look at, the people in your database, and by the way, DTD2 is truly meant to be your Met contacts, the people that you actually know. We only get into the cold leads that you might have in your database if you've gotten through all the ones that you actually have the relationship with. And so it really is about taking the time to have the relationship. And you and I teach something called the 3 attempt approach,
Mhm.
where the goal is not just dial through them and leave a message. It's actually like connect with people. And when we're intentional about, reaching out to them 3 times over the course of the week, we've got a system around that. Then you can actually talk to 75% of the people in a 2 letter group versus 30%.
Yeah.
And we know it's a numbers game.
Yeah. Well, and think, if you're having more conversations, that means more referrals, more deeper connections, more I'm Steve, their realtor versus Steve, the realtor. It's all of this. You start to see how this all fits together. If the conversation is the relationship, combine it with what we call the 3 attempt approach, which we teach in our program, then having more of these conversations matters. And so don't just throw them in a dialer. And of course, here's the great part. If I'm following DTD2, and Megan, if you would go ahead and drop in the chat, the 2024 DTD2 schedule. If you're not where you can get the chat or access it, we're going to have a follow-up when the recording comes out. If you're registered for this webinar, which you are because you're here, and we'll send you that DTD2 schedule as well. And it's just really that simple. Take the 2 letters by last name, and that's your schedule. And we've got all kinds of tutorials on how to make that work in your CRM and everything else as well. And yeah, let's keep going because we've got some important ground to cover here. We're setting a powerful foundation for you today. So Tammy, the forward conversation Um, we've really set the groundwork for empathy with that, creating that empathy connection. We're going to look at where we can combine empathy and logic into a conversation in a few moments. And yet, let's go to the logic part. Now, the logic part. Hang on a second. The logic part is where they're going to understand that you know the real estate market, that you know real estate, that you know trends. In fact, Gary Keller today talks about the importance of, and this is what we do with our trusted advisors in Never Ending Referrals. We're helping them develop what are those messages that match the market right now,
Right.
and then what's the MOFR? What's MOFR stand for, Tammy?
Make offer for immediate response. We don't want to be the information kiosk. We would like to put out the information and then prompt them to take an action of some sort, whether it's a response or an action.
Yeah, and that may be a the action may be to schedule a no obligation strategy session. The offer could be if you have any thoughts of transacting real estate in the next 12 to 24 months, contact me to schedule a no obligation strategy session. And yet there has to be a message that's compelling that says, maybe we should do that. And that message is going to fit the right people for the right market for the right time right now. And we'll look at an example of that here in a few minutes. And yet, let's look at the direct mail channel, and we'll give you some examples
Mm,
here
nice.
of direct mail. And this is something we do with our agents. We have this Auto Connect, and we have also what we call ACDC Auto Connect digital content. And we're focused on a hyper local 52 touch local expert campaign. And so we have a newsletter that goes out quarterly. We have an item of value postcard that goes out monthly. And this campaign is built out of 2 direct mail pieces a month and 2 monthly local expert emails. One could be a local expert email, and it could also be neighborhood nurture smart plan. There'd be various ways you could do that. And then, of course, our quarterly DT D2 personal contacts. So, Tammy, if I'm doing 2 direct mail, 2 emails, that's 4 a month. 4 times 12 is
48, and then you're
48.
452.
4 is 52. And so now imagine, I'm tapping on that forehead on average. Here's 2 pages out of a 4-page newsletter um, that has got community interest over here, kind of what's happening with where millennials are migrating towards. Um, Here's the jumbo postcard, which is the item of value card each month. It features a local artist. And then here's all the things going on, festivals and whatnot, over about a 6-week period. Now, Tammy, what I love about this piece is this is kind of a cross between empathy and logic. It shows I'm kind of part of the community. I'm one of you. It maybe brings that little authenticity in a little bit as well. We're not all business all the time, and so this nice little item of value. Now here's a postcard that on the back it'll have a message interpreting the data and a call to action, which would be the MOFR. But this is in the months we don't have the newsletter, we have the market stats postcard that's going out. And so this is building the logic piece that we understand the market. And we're not just reporting on the market, we're also demonstrating that here's what this means and interpreting it for those folks as well. And so when we look at this, in fact, let me go to one other spot real quick. One of the things that as we go into 2024, we've been providing our Never Ending Referrals members with a really powerful resource. And that resource is uh, emails that you can easily adapt uh, for your market that go position you as the trusted advisor. Here's an example of one we did on interest rates and what's the future of mortgage rates. And by the way, we took some resources right out of the KWRI playbook, and we went through lessons from history, inflation and demographics, uh, and the impact that that has short term and long term on inflation, which influences rates. So resources like this, are going to demonstrate that you're that trusted advisor. You're putting out a message. And by the way, Tammy, look at the bottom. The call to action is, if you're considering a change in your housing situation over the next 12 to 24 months, let's set a no obligation strategy session. And it's about getting to kitchen tables today. The consumer, your messaging matters so much because the consumer is so confused.
Yeah, they are.
Well, Tammy, and you guys tell me, when the consumer is confused, what do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. They sit on
Nothing.
the sideline until a trusted advisor shows up in their world and helps them see the opportunity of the market.
That's right.
And so they don't miss an opportunity. And so this is why, the work we do with our members in their referrals of helping them build that trusted advisor position is so critical, because if you're not doing it, they're succumbing to all the noise that's out there. And then once you're in flow with them, that's when they really listen to what you say, what you put out, and how you create that connection. So, Tammy, one of the other things that is a tenet of Never Ending Referrals, one of our stated goals, is to grow our database in a year over a year by 250. Speak English, Stephen. By 250 people or more.
Yeah.
And what's one of the best ways for us to do this?
Business to business relationships, and they're such fabulous contacts. And this is my favorite conversation to have with the database. We're going to share something with you that this is a conversation. If you're reaching out and having 4 conversations a year, this one you can have at least 2 of the 4 times, and you're going to see that it's such a value add, it's such an empathy thing with the people in your database. And at the same time, it's also helping you build business to business relationships. And these are warm connections to business owners. And Steve, when we get connected to business owners and we can pass business their way, small business owners know the power of referrals between each other. And now we have just built another source for business.
Well, and this is the point, being that every one of you is real estate agents, are in a very unique position in your community, and I think it's one we undervalue way too much. I mean, so much so that we dedicate a whole section to this in Never Ending Referrals, on business to business, and that is that, think about the placeholder you hold in your community. You're often the first, second, or third point of contact for somebody moving new into your market. And by the way, if they are moving new into your market, Tammy, they're moving there without what?
They've left everything. They left all their service providers, who does their nails, who does their hair, who mows their grass, who's a great dentist. I mean,
Mhm.
we're not talking just the people that have to do with housing.
Yeah.
It's how do I become a lifestyle concierge? I would love it if you all wrote that down and that was your goal, is to be their local trusted real estate advisor and their lifestyle concierge. Then you've just positioned yourself in a completely different place in their lives.
But Tammy, I didn't get in the hospitality business. I got in the real estate business.
Well, that's a byproduct. Yes,
Yeah.
you are a
Eh,
lifestyle concierge, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the great thing. When you build that position to be a resource for people, it's like the whole Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player. They used to talk about the
Oh, yeah.
um, skating to where the puck's going to be versus just skating where the puck is. And if they're only going to transact real estate every 8 to 12 years, well, how do I stay relevant in their world, throughout the journey? And by the way, this tool that we'll build, in fact, we even have an example that we do in our session on how to set this up, what it might look like. Uh, that trusted advisor vendor list, that go-to guide. But Tammy, let's talk about how we curate this. And one of the best ways to curate it, I mean, you can curate it and build this list of business relationships, by just reaching out direct, and we've got a strategy for that. You can also do it by having a conversation, value-added conversation with the people in your database. Can we model that for them?
Sure.
Let's do that. So I'm going to call Tammy. So Tammy's one of my past clients. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammy, Steve Schlueter. How are you?
Hey, Steve. I'm great. Happy New Year.
You too. How'd you celebrate the holidays?
Oh, low key. Did you see the post on social media where people had tickets to stay home and do nothing? That was me.
That I didn't know I could get that one. That would have been
Yeah.
all right. I would have taken up on that one for sure. And hey, of course, let me, Tammy, I wanted to reach out, see how you're doing. It's been a while since we've connected, and I'm working on a little business project. I thought you could help me with. And before I get into that, though, tell me what kind of plans you guys have for the new year. What's on the big goal board? Anything big achievements you're shooting for this year?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say anything big. We're doing some things to the house and that's about it for now.
What's the number one house project you're taking on?
I'm turning my pantry into a second kitchen.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That means you cook double that way, right?
No, it means less mess than the one that everybody else.
Oh, okay. There you go. Perfect. Hey, well, Tammy, as I mentioned earlier, the reason I was calling today is we're working on a little project for our friends and clients. Um, as a real estate agent, you can imagine I've got people moving here to the Charlotte area constantly from all other parts of the country and the world who, when they get here, they've left everybody behind. And, who's going to do their hair, who's going to repair their car, who do they get to help them with, you know, anything, their pantry, California closets, right, whatever it is. And we're curating a list. We call it our 5-star concierge vendor list. Um, and we're going out to our friends and our network and asking who they've had a really great experience with that might be a good person that we want to include in our directory, so that we can make them available to more people that might have a need. So my question for you is who have you done business with, maybe in the last month or month and a half, that's just really blown you away with an exceptional, maybe 5-star uh, consumer experience? Who really knocked your socks off?
Oh gosh, Steve, I love that you're doing this. We actually had some landscaping done
Hmm.
in our backyard, and they were amazing.
Oh, wow. And so when you say amazing, what made them so amazing? What were you impressed with?
It was like they were never here. It was like I just instantly looked in the back and it was there. And sometimes when people have things done, it looks like they just had it done,
Hmm.
and it didn't. It was just instant and
Wow.
pleased with it.
What's the name of the company?
Three Trees Landscaping.
Three Trees Landscaping. Wow, it sounds like somebody we should definitely have in our directory. I'm curious, do you have a contact I could reach out to there at Three Trees?
I do. His name is Doug, and I would give you his number.
Okay, so I get Doug's information. Well, thanks for that. And by the way, Tammy, when I reach out to Doug, would it be okay if I mentioned that you had passed his name along to me?
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I'll reach out to him here in the next 24 hours, make sure we get connected, and see what we can do to include him in our directories. Doesn't cost him anything. We just want to make a great resource for our peeps. Hey, maybe there's another introduction you can help me with. Tammy, one of the things we start getting a lot of requests for this time of year is CPA. And unfortunately, mine retired a couple of years ago, and honestly, I haven't found that 5-star CPA yet. And do you happen to have an introduction in that space that is just an exceptional uh, 5-star CPA that you might be able to send our way?
You had me, Steve, until you said 5-star, and I don't
Mm.
know that. Bruce always feels like we're leaving money on the table, so I
Mhm.
think Mars is probably a 4-star. So I don't
Mhm.
think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me ask you this. I know with our network being as vast as it is, that I'm going to find a couple of really exceptional people. Um, would you want me to introduce you to somebody if that person comes along? Or are you comfortable with who you have?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll do that. And I just know, maybe it'll be this week, maybe it'll be next week. And I know sooner or later I'll find that great connection. And when I do, I'll be sure to connect you up and we'll be good to go. Well, hey, thanks for helping me with this, Tammy. And by the way, last thing, uh, is right now, there's a lot of confusion going on in the real estate market right now these days, right? What are you hearing about the market?
Oh my gosh, interest rates, interest rates, interest rates, Steve.
Yeah.
It's on
Yeah.
our news every day.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is there's a lot of confusion in the market. And if you know or hear anybody that has a real estate interest next 12 to 24 months, there's really some unique opportunities in the market of today that people just aren't aware of. And if you hear anyone, please let us know. We'd be happy to maybe shed light on some of the confusion that's going on out there. Because even though rates are coming down, we don't believe they're going to go down much more, and yet there's kind of a window of opportunity for folks right now. There's kind of a seasonal dip they can take advantage of. So, hey, Tammy, before I let you go, tell me about, I know you guys are traveling all the time. Any travels coming up soon?
Yeah, well, we haven't booked it. We have been, looking at Puerto Vallarta, then we started
Mm.
looking at Venezuela. So yeah, we're weighing options.
Your compass heading only goes south, doesn't it?
It does.
What's got you looking there? Just, yeah, you're just sun and beach?
Just, yeah, something different.
Yeah, well, that sounds exciting. So, uh, it's certainly nice to get away if you can do it during the winter too. That's for darn sure. Hey, Tammy, thanks for taking time to help me today. I'll be reaching out to you once we've published this, let you know how to access it. And in the meantime, if there's anything we can do for you, let us know. Anything else we can help you with other than that CPA?
No, no, Steve, we just always appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Hey, thanks, Tammy. In a
Yep.
conversation. So peel that back, Tammy.
That took 4 minutes, by the way.
Boy, it sure felt longer than that, but it's 4.
4 minutes. It literally took 4 minutes. So that I love that conversation because if I go back and I unpackage what Steve and I just did, excuse me, Steve called and said he was working on a project for the people in his world. And I know he's a real estate agent. And when he describes what he's doing, all of a sudden it's very evident to me that it's not real estate related. It literally is just a service that he's doing to bring value to the people in his world. So I already am open to having this conversation with him. Then he asked me if I'd had a 5-star experience over the last 30, 60, 90 days. And I had. And when I connected him with Doug at my landscaping company, he asked a couple of things that were really important that we ask. And it was what was so great about working with that landscaping company? Because now when Steve calls Doug, he can say, oh my gosh, we've got a great client in common. And Tammy she just could not say enough about blah, 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 blah. Okay. So it's a great way to have a warm conversation with a business connection. And by the way, because he asked if he could use my name, it's not a cold call to that business owner. I just got a warm connection and a referral. And I'm not asking for anything in return from that business except, hey, do you want to be part of my 5-star concierge group? It doesn't cost you anything. It's a service that we're doing for the community. And so my relationship equity just went up with a brand new business relationship, unless they're married to a realtor, Steve. That could be too, right? However, it just went up. Well, then he
Mhm.
went on, and I think what's really important to note about the second ask that you had with the CPA is I always encourage everybody that second ask, make it something that not everybody has a 5-star of. CPA is my favorite. This time of year, the first quarter, it's an easy because so many people think they're leaving money on the table,
Mhm.
right? And so ask for something that they're not going to have a lot of. And here's what's really interesting about that, Steve. If you're really strategic about who that second ask is for, like a CPA or maybe a probate attorney, or you fill in the blank, be really intentional about what is in that blank. Because number one, as Steve continues making those conversations through his network, by the way, don't ever use the word database. Nobody wants to be in somebody's database, right? I love being in your network. Like that just is like cool, right? And so as he continues making those conversations through his network, he's going to uncover some CPAs. So number one, he can go back and he can connect those CPAs with the folks in the database looking for it. And then Steve, you now have some connections in hand when you do connect with those CPAs, which means you have potential referrals for them. And so guys, when I say go back and be really intentional about who it is that you're putting in that second blank, who is it that could be in front of more people and have some possible referrals for me if I have referrals for them. And so
Mhm.
I'm always really intentional about who's in that second blank, and CPA is the perfect one this time of year,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Well, and
here's the other thing. Sorry,
yeah, go
how
ahead.
excited I get about this conversation. Here's the other thing is now when he reaches back out and says, here's how you can access it or whatever, you just put something together that teaches the people in your database to call you when they're looking for a referral for anything, not just real estate. And all that means is there's going to be more conversations than the four that you're actually making intentionally through the DTD2 because you're teaching them to call you, which is always our goal. Right. So this conversation just absolutely accomplishes all of that in 4 minutes.
Well, and think about what happens when I find the CPAs.
Hmm.
Find the CPA, and I may have
You could
three
have,
CPAs, and I might have 10 people that desire a
that's right.
great CPA, and I go in with referrals in hand.
That's
I'm their
right.
new bestest friend. All
Yep.
right, in fact, do you want to put the link to download that conversation, Tammy, in the chat? We'll, if you guys want to download that. Now, by the way, there's something that we modeled for you that's important that you take away, and the thing that makes it conversational, that's so critical, is you take the business conversations, which we had the 5-star conversation there, and oops, let's see if we can get to the right place. It went happy.
There it is.
And we sandwiched the purpose of the call, the business conversation, we sandwiched it with Ford. And, ideally, I would have even mentioned earlier, she kind of started the Ford conversation, in advance. Ideally, what I'd say, hey, I was working on a little project and also wanted to check in and see how you were doing. And, before I get to the project, tell me and I would ask a Ford question,
Right.
as I did in this case, how'd you spend your holidays? Based on what she said, I asked an appropriate follow-up question. And then after the follow-up question was answered, I transitioned to the purpose of the call. So let me tell you again why I was calling. That little project we're working on, we're building this. And so that's the purpose of the call. And then coming out of the purpose of the call, the business part of the conversation, I also asked another Ford question, which was travels,
Hmm.
and then kind of expanded on that with another question. And then I wrapped up the call. And so, one of the ways, the framework for making these business conversations conversational is put them into a sandwich. And the business meat of it goes in the middle. Now, Tammy, every once in a while, you do an open face sandwich. Talk to us about the open face sandwich.
Well, I think you have to know the people that you're speaking with. And, when we look at like a KPA or a disc, it would be your high assertives, your high Ds, and they might need to move really fast. And you just go right to the meat of the call and then end with a forward question. So you just have to know the people that you're talking to and whether or not their time is limited. If they say, yeah, you know what? Yes, I'd love to help you. I've only got 3 minutes. Great. Then go right to it. And then you end with the forward question.
Yeah. Well, Tammy, we're going to go through. In fact, I have a gift for you guys in just a moment. And we want to tell you about some resources. If you're wanting to position yourself this year as the trusted advisor, we'd like to share with you how you can partner with us to do that and get the emails, consulting guides, all the things that we're helping our trusted advisors and never ending referrals put to work in their business. And let me give you just a few resources to point you to. And our Never Ending Referrals group coaching program at MAPS kicks off again on Monday and noon Central Time. And we'll begin our journey through the 8 lessons of Never Ending Referrals. And we also quarterly have a market of the moment call. Here's the latest conversations. What you'll also be getting on Monday, we'll have a bonus download for all our members of an updated consulting guide on being the local economist, how to navigate the conversation around interest rates, inflation, are we overvalued, housing shortage, all of that. You'll receive copies of the emails that we've been using with our agents that can be easily adapted for your market. But this is the 8 lessons of never ending referrals. You can go to neverendingreferrals.com to find out more. And if you're ready to start that journey of moving from chasing business to attracting business, there's some clips where we've got the expert interviews in here and the people that are doing things best, like the daily group and client events. And how do I make these things come to life in my business? And this is all part of our program here at Never Ending Referrals. So, Megan, if you would put in the chat the link and to register for our program, enrollment in Never Ending Referrals in our community to become that trusted advisor is $39 a month. We have 3 times a month live webinars on Mondays, going through the lessons of Never Ending Referrals. There's a 5-month minimum enrollment. And Tammy, we've got people that have been with us, what, for years, right?
Gosh,
And just,
3 years. Yeah.
and so the link is in the chat, and we'd love to have you join us on that journey. And as an additional gift for you today, Megan, if you'll put the registration link in and also put in the link to Amazon.com. Today and tomorrow only, you can download the free ebook of Rescue Dogs and Real Estate, and it's a business fable on moving from transactional to relational. It's an agent's journey who's at the beginning of a year who says, I've got to do things different. This is not serving me any longer at a high level. And if you read this story and you relate to this story, decide that now is the year that I'm going to move. And it doesn't mean I don't call expireds or I don't call for sale by owners. And yet the foundation of my business, it's going to be that thing that builds a 50, 60, $70 return in my database. So Tammy, let's put a bow tie on our day today. I mean, we covered a lot. What did we cover?
Oh my gosh, so much, right? That, I mean, it all starts with trust. The conversation is the relationship. We've given you the model, the DTD2. It's, the 2 letters per week by last name that you're reaching out to. It's your schedule forever. It is doing the most important work that you could do with your database. Steve, here's the thing, guys, you could strip away all the emails and all the direct mails, and if you'll have the 4 conversations a year and stay in that relationship with people, you'll uncover the business and you will be the person they think of. You'll capture the mind share. And the flip side, if you just took away the 4 phone calls and did all the other things, you literally will leave business on the table. And I go back to what you shared about Barbara in the beginning, and it's simply that I remember I've been in this business for 20 years. And, in the beginning, it's just knowing what to say. Like, how do I bring value to people so I don't feel like I'm always asking for business? What are the things I do? And learning these conversations and being able to bring value to people literally changed my career. And I think, Steve, that's why we've had people with us for so many years. You and I are both bold coaches. We're both KWU master faculty. We succeed in this business at a high level, and our passion is the database. It's 100% where it's at. If you want to wake up every day and love your business, then get into relationship with the people that you already have relationships with. Shannon, you asked a question, and I wanted to address it. When we were talking about the vendors, you said, what if a vendor had a bad experience or quit halfway through a job? Yikes. A couple of things is, when you're bringing business owners onto your 5-star concierge program or whatever you choose to call it, you have to make it very clear the expectations for them are that you're going to be following up with folks. And the only way they stay on that list is to actually provide a 5-star experience, because that's your expectation. And then the other, on the flip side, with your people, it's, hey, we're putting this together. The only way that people are on this list are through referrals from people like you. It doesn't necessarily mean that I've experienced, working with these people. It means that someone like yourself has said, you've got to be in relationship with this person and get them on your list. Now, here's the thing. if somebody has a bad experience, we're going to take them off the list. Nobody's had a bad experience at this point, and yet I haven't personally experienced it. I think you have to remove that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question about the DTD2 schedule with text, social messages, handwritten notes, smart plans. I know somebody out there has taken and said, okay, and then on this week do this, and on this week do
Mm.
these other things. And some of these things, you really ideally are going to automate and get that 52 touch in place. So we'll go through in, session 7 of Never Ending Referrals, getting your 52 touch built in the framework. And we do provide some smart plan resources for you to access as well. So
It-
you'll get access to all that information. All right. Anything else?
No, I think we're
Guys,
good.
thank you for being here today and getting your year started off with Tammy and I. And this is a labor of love for us. We know that it will transform your business and your life when you lean into these principles and get systematic about it. So thank you for tuning in. Put something to work, implement, uh, and look out. You'll get the recording of this soon. Be on the lookout. And we may have who never knows, might have another actual detail or two included for you. And again, the book download is the ebook. So that's going to be available free just today and tomorrow only. So if you intend to download that ebook, please do that today or tomorrow. All right. Take care, folks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year.